Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second summer FUSA webinar. I'm Vincent Gadioma, the 2020-2021 FUSA president, and I'm joined by Tobenna Ugwu, my vice president. And tonight we'll be answering questions regarding classrooms, delivery of instruction, and internship and career readiness in the age of COVID. If you have any questions regarding move-in, the classes of 2021, 2022, and 2023 are invited to a webinar hosted by Residence Life this Thursday at 6 p.m. If you have any questions regarding student life and co-curriculars on campus, please leave your question in the FUSA comment box, which can be found on our FUSA web portal, or check out the recording of our student life webinar on the brand new FUSA YouTube channel. And like the last webinar, tonight's webinar will be recorded and posted for future viewing. So without further ado, I'd like to now introduce our amazing panelists tonight who are kind enough to take the time to be here after our small one-week postponement. So Dr. Ligas.
Hey, Vincent, good evening. Good evening, Stags. It's good to virtually see you and be with you this evening. I'm so glad that you're taking some time out of your schedules and these remaining days of summer to reach out to us. And hopefully we can spend this evening answering some questions about academics. I know you have a number of them. A number of you, your parents and guardians, have been reaching out to the Provost office and to the various dean's offices. So hopefully we can further answer some of those questions. And you know, before we begin and Vince starts asking the questions, I just want to say thank you to FUSA for organizing this. I know there's a lot of uncertainty going on out there right now, and I think you should all be very proud of your student representatives and everything that they are doing to keep you informed and to keep our community together. That's the most important thing during these very trying times, and I'm very appreciative for all that these student representatives do and all that all of you want to experience once you get back to the community. So thanks for having me.
And I guess I'll take it from there, Mark.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I failed already to follow the directions. It's been a long day.
That's okay.
I'd like to introduce you to Ms. Kath Borgman, our Director of University Career Services. Kath, take it away.
Thank you. So as Dr. Ligas said, I'm Kath Borgman, and I work in the University Career Center. But what a lot of people don't know is that I too am a stag. I graduated a long time ago, and after being gone for 10 years, I came back to Fairfield. And what's going to be 15 years ago, I switched over to career. So the career model has taken a lot of different changes in the past couple of years. Some of you might remember them. And right now, the University Career Center actually hosts the bigger events. So that might be career fairs, which are going to be changing, mock interview day, the university mock interview day, a lot of things like alumni job shadow. So we do those. But also there are people working in each of the schools that are career centers. So the Dolan School has a career center of its own. And I encourage all of people in Dolan to go and meet with the people there. The College of Arts and Sciences also has a career center. And engineering is supported by someone in the University Career Center, Sue Quinlivan. And I am lucky enough, not that you're not all great, but I work with the School of Nursing and Alumni. So rather than go into any more detail, I will hand it off to Jillian.
Thanks, Kath. Hi, everybody. So my name is Jillian Kelly. I am the Assistant Director in the Office of Accessibility at Fairfield University. We are located on the main floor of the library within the academic commons. I work with students with documented disabilities and temporary impairments, and I'm definitely looking forward to discussing more about questions about accommodations and what that process looks like. FUSA, thank you for having me here today, and I'm again looking forward to answering any questions that you all have.
Thank you, Jillian. So before we begin, if you have any questions at any point during this webinar, feel free to utilize the Q&A function located at the bottom of your screen. We will endeavor to answer as many questions as we can, but also feel free to leave your email address and the FUSA rep will follow up if your question is unanswered. With that being said, Dr. Ligas, the first question is for you. How are provosts, deans, and faculty preparing to deliver a safe, engaging, and in-person classroom experience in the fall semester?
Great, thank you, Tobenna. Great question. So the first thing you folks should know, if you haven't already heard this, is that when we had to pivot back in March, at that point in time, there was already a university task force in place, made up of individuals from the academic division, from the operations division, from the student affairs division. And in fact, this task force really came into play even earlier than March, because we saw what was happening largely abroad, which, you know, sadly and unfortunately, maybe some of you experienced that if you are indeed juniors coming into senior year. We knew that something was going to happen overseas, and so we started talking about how best to prepare for this. And you know, as you folks know, you lived through this in the spring semester. We learned a lot from the spring semester academically. Certainly the deans and the faculty are focusing on not only creating environments and spaces that are safe and health focused for you, but also spaces that continue to be engaging. So let me start with that. For those of you who are intending to return back to campus this fall semester, as you know, your schedules are already intact because you already registered back in the spring. And if we have any first years, we know that you are working on your academic advising right now and over the next week, so your schedules are being set for you too. Those schedules have not changed. You will still have those classes with those faculty members. However, the way in which you interact with the faculty and each other throughout the fall semester is going to change. Because of the social distancing requirements and the mandates by the state as well as the federal government and the various healthcare agencies, you can't all be physically present in the classrooms at the same time. So in terms of delivering a safe and engaging in-person classroom experience, the first thing you're going to realize is that you will be coming into the classroom for each of your classes throughout the semester in smaller groups. And your faculty are going to figure out the best way to do that. As a clear-cut example, right? As you know, many of you are in classes where there are about 25 students, right? A typical classroom here at Fairfield University can fit anywhere from 20 to 30 plus students in it. We do have some of the larger lecture halls, but we'll stick with what's average, which is typically 20 to 25 students. All 25 of you could not fit into a classroom given the social distancing requirements of 6 feet. So perhaps the particular classroom you're in will only fit 12 of you. So now the faculty member is trying to figure out the best way to break the 25 of you down into smaller groups so that you can rotate through the classroom throughout the semester in some equitable basis. So perhaps maybe 12 of you come in on a Monday, another 8 of you come in on a Thursday, then the following Monday, the remaining students come in. This is what the faculty are trying to figure out now. And one of the ways that you are able to help us figure that out is hopefully you have filled out the self-identify survey, which is expressing your intent of whether or not you're going to return this fall. That information is being tabulated as that survey's been out there for a few weeks now, and we're going to get that information to the faculty so that they know which of you in their classes are coming back versus which of you are going to stay remote. That will help them determine how best to rotate you folks in and out of the classroom. So that's perhaps the the most visible, if you will, way in which the faculty and the deans are focusing on your safety while also trying to incorporate and keep that in-class experience that all of you love and that all of you come to demand from a Fairfield education. It doesn't stop just in the classroom though, too. I want you to know that we're very focused on what happens at that end of the hour when the class ends. How do we get you folks safely out of the buildings too, right? Seems like a much more minor detail, and perhaps you're thinking it's not necessarily academic in nature, but the reality is when you're in our academic buildings, we have to ensure your safety and your health. So we're also focusing on how we're going to create a release schedule so that we can leave some of you out, you know, in intervals, so that we're not crowding the hallways and we're not crowding the stairwells, and we have all of you in congested areas at the same time. You know, once we can get you out of the buildings, then with the natural spaces, which as many, if not all of you know, the health organizations are saying it, there's much less of a likelihood of spreading the virus when we're in these open spaces. Once we can get you safely in some measured way out of each of these buildings, then you can move about your business. But those are really the two big issues that we're focused on. And please know it's not just the deans and the faculty are focusing on this. As you can imagine, we have our facilities people in on this too. We have mapped out every classroom. We've literally removed chairs and furniture so that the class is literally inviting only X number of students into each of those spaces.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Ligas. Then for all the wonderful insight, actually, I should say. But the next question I have is for chemist Kath Borgman. I just want to know how the Career Center is planning on engaging. Oh, sorry, here's a question. Here we go. What can students expect to be different in the internship and job market? And how will the Career Center continue to be a resource for students during the school year?
Well, that's a really good question. I personally think that while you may see some changes, there are still a lot of opportunities being posted in Stags for Hire, and people are still hiring. Right now, there are over 200 internships that have been posted. So maybe the way people do internships will change. You know, that we have to see. But as of this moment, people are hiring, they're evaluating. Do I think maybe there will be changes down the pike in terms of industry and possible layoffs? Yes, there is that possibility. But that kind of reinforces the fact that people need to be on their game, not to the point where they're going mad because they're not finding things, but they actually need to be doing all of the things their career counselor is telling them to do, and all of the things that have been suggested throughout the 4 years in terms of getting your resume done and how to do the searches and being resilient when maybe someone doesn't accept you for a position. You know, it's going to take a little bit of stick-to-itiveness to get through this. But, you know, while I've never been in a pandemic, I've been through at least 3 cycles where the economy was absolutely horrendous. And we're going to make it through here. Now, as far as the University Career Center goes, we are doing everything possible to continue to support the needs of our stags. We're in the process of putting together virtual career fairs. So the first one will definitely be on September 23rd, and that's targeted more for accounting majors, finance. But stay tuned, because we're going to have a bunch of different virtual fairs set up based on very specific outlines. So you want to, don't delete those emails you're getting from Stags for Hire. You know, pay attention, read them. Don't just dismiss them. Otherwise, it's kind of on you if you're missing out. We are going to be trying to take all the programs that students really liked in the past and have benefited from, and we're going to try and offer them in a slightly different format. We're even going to have our career peer advisors set up so that they can assist you during the week in, you know, with your resumes, with your cover letters, helping you with different things that, you know, they've learned how to do and have been trained to do. So if you see that things are missing that you would like, please feel free to email me and let's have a conversation about it. And the same goes with all of your career centers in your specific schools. You know, I'm pretty sure they're all doing the same as we are in terms of pivoting so that everyone gets the best experience. I'm trying to have whatever programs that we might have offered in the past, you know, as much as possible, get them in person, you know, depending upon what the room capacities are. So stay tuned. We're here to meet your needs and do everything we can so that it's seamless.
Thanks, Kat. Our next question is for Jillian. How will the Office of Accessibility continue to promote an equitable learning experience for those who need accommodations during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Thank you for the question. Oh, I'm not muted, right? Okay. You all can hear me, right? Something popped up. I want to make sure everyone can hear me. Okay, I'm good. All right, awesome. Yes, thank you for that question. So, you know, I have to refer to what Dr. Ligas had mentioned, and, you know, I'm sure all of you experienced a transition in the spring of, you know, needing to go online. And that was such a, you know, different experience for everybody. During that time, we really were connected with the Center for Academic Excellence. You know, that office works closely with professors on campus, and, you know, we were really promoting the different structures of universal design in order to, you know, create a more accessible learning environment for students. We have continued to work with them throughout the summer. We've been, you know, my director and I, Megan Buxton, have been working on different, you know, FAQs, online considerations when working with students with disabilities. I have worked with many professors one-on-one and students because, as you can imagine, students with current accommodations, you know, accommodations might look different in the online environment. So, you know, really trying to navigate those different scenarios. But we continue to be a resource for students, you know, and really something to also note is students, there's no deadline to register with our office. So, you know, if there's any, a new diagnosis of yours, you know, that comes up and you're realizing that it's impacting you in the online environment or the hybrid, you know, setting that we're coming into, you know, you can certainly reach out to us and we'll help you through that process as well. But we are just really a continued resource, and it's, I am anticipating a lot of different discussions because, you know, as Dr. Ligas also was talking about, is the different formats of classes. So it might look a little different from our typical fall semester, but, you know, we're going to be happy to have continued conversations with students and, you know, instructors, and just to make it, you know, as accessible as possible for everybody, and do the best that we can.
Perfect. Thank you, Jillian. So now I'd like to move on to the next part of our night, which is our live Q&A. And remember, you can use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Some of the questions coming in, let me see. So I guess the first question I have to start with was for maybe specifically Kath, you can answer this. Will there be a career and internships fair in the fall, and how will it look like?
Okay. Yes, there will be a career and internship fair in the fall. There will be several, and it will all be virtual. So we have just contracted with a vendor who specializes in that, and it's a work in progress. But this is another one of those reasons, I'm going to hear this from me a few times. Don't delete your emails from Stags for Hire, okay? Or Careers at Fairfield. We're probably going to have 4 or 5 different, very different career fairs just this semester. So somebody else had asked a question, if you don't mind, I'll just bring this up, whether or not they needed business clothes. Well, because we're going to have these career fairs, it might make sense for you to, in fact, bring some business clothes. And since on-site events are not completely eliminated, you never know what you might be invited to. Who knows? Maybe Dr. Nemec will invite you in for your opinion. So bring something that maybe it's not a complete suit, but bring something that is presentable. Now, for those of you maybe who don't necessarily have a business wear, we still have the career closet in the University Career Center. So I would encourage you to contact the front desk. You can email us at careers@fairfield.edu, and we can arrange to meet you, socially distanced meet you, and we can go through what we have in that closet. There's a substantial amount. So that was a long answer to that question, but yeah, bring something that's professional. That's not going away.
Thank you, Kat. Our next question is for you, Dr. Ligas. How will first-year students find out about the online Zoom meetings with their advisors, and for the individual schools as well?
Right. So you're talking about the incoming first-year students, the class of 2024.
Yes.
Yesterday afternoon, an email went out to all members of the class of 2024 with all the information about their advising meetings for this week and next week. The email explains all the steps that need to be undertaken, which is essentially reading when each of the departments are meeting each day. There's a Zoom code for each department. So let's say you're a history major. You can see on the different advising days when there will be a history faculty member available. You use that Zoom code to link right in, and you can have a one-on-one meeting with the faculty member. Let's say in the course of that meeting, you find out that, oh, my math placement for the fall semester is not appropriate, or I have some questions about it. You can leave that Zoom meeting, and then you can Zoom in with a math faculty member to talk about your math placement. Similarly with language. For those of you who are undecided, which is a perfect place to be, as I've told many of you in orientation and in the various undecided virtual sessions that we've had, you can Zoom with an assistant dean of your school to talk more generally about what it is you might like to study, or certainly to ask questions about your schedule. But that email did go out yesterday afternoon. Please keep in mind that since you are now Fairfield University students, you have to check your Fairfield email account. That's where you'll find that information.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Ligas. Next question I can see is more for Jillian. For students who receive accommodations, will testing continue to be facilitated in the library, or will there be separate rooms for each individual student?
Yeah, so thank you for asking that question. I think that has come up pretty often, and especially in my new intake meetings with students. So from my understanding, professors are being advised, to come up with alternative means of assessment. So what that means is instead of the typical sit-down in-person exam, they are being advised through the Center of Academic Excellence to come up with, instead of a sit-down exam, either, projects, papers, or even an online exam, because as you may know, there will be other students in the class who will be virtual. I think there may be a concern about passing papers back and forth as well. if there is any in-person exam, please contact our office and we will, work with you directly. But yes, thank you again for asking that question. Keep in mind, of course, the professor is the first point of contact, and any student with accommodations can include our office in any emails, or any, communication with the professor to learn more about the course format and what that's going to look like. I think that, from what our office is anticipating is that there's going to be less sit down, exams, and it's going to be not as traditional as we normally see. So definitely your professor is your first point of contact, but certainly include us in those conversations as well.
Vinny, Tobenna, if I could just follow up on what Jillian said. I have the pleasure and the privilege of working closely with Jillian in accessibility as well as with Kath in career. When it comes to accessibility, another issue, and this gets back to the initial question that you asked me when we started this, the safety and health of the students. For those of you who know, we're very fortunate, frankly blessed, to have the Office of Accessibility in the Academic Commons now in the library. We have wonderful, clearly articulated space for accessibility. But the reality is, students have to come through the Tobenna Nasilius Library, the main entrance there, right? There has to be face-to-face contact. The Office of Accessibility is very much, whether proctoring an exam or doing an intake, a typically face-to-face situation, and we just can't risk that for the sake of the students' health and the sake of the staff's health. So as Ms. Kelly had pointed out, we're strongly encouraging the faculty to come up with these alternative means of assessment so that we don't have to bring more people into the Tobenna Nasilius complex, right? And so that they don't have to be sitting in those proctor areas, which, we will try to keep as clean as possible, but it's next to impossible with this airborne virus that can really rest itself in a number of different locations. So that's just a whole nother example of how we're trying to maintain the safety during this uncertain time.
Thank you, Dr. Ligas and Jillian. So our next question is about labs. What efforts has the schools made to ensure that labs are socially distanced, but still give students the opportunity to have the practical knowledge for their classes?
Absolutely, that's an excellent question. As most of you know, especially if you're an upper class student, you've already been in a lab-based science, our lab enrollments tend to be significantly smaller than our lecture enrollments, right? Now, with that said, a number of the lab spaces are smaller too. So one of the things we are certainly looking at, and the faculty are looking at as we speak, is how can we utilize the larger lab spaces so that we can bring these lab groups in? And we're trying to navigate that given the fact that your schedules are already set up. We realize that when it comes to lab, and certainly for those of you in Egan, when it comes to the simulation opportunities, being in person is important, and in many cases it's required. So to do that, the faculty are adjusting, certainly the number of people who can come into those lab spaces. We've done the socially distancing measures just as we have in the actual lecture classrooms too. So only X number of you will be allowed into these spaces at a given point in time. We thus also realize that we're going to have to do more in the time that we have a subgroup of you in that lab, because you won't be in the lab as often as if you would under normal circumstances. The other thing you need to remember though too is, since spring semester, our lab sciences faculty have come up with a number of different virtual opportunities to help simulate, if you will, for lack of a better way to put it, these lab experiences. So we will make sure that we will also incorporate them in for those students who will be learning virtually when the other students happen to be in a lab. And then remember, we'll switch out so that those who are virtual will come into a lab. It's not that some students will be completely virtual and others will be completely lab-based. If you are on campus, I can't stress this enough, if you're on campus as a resident and or at the beach, you're considered a resident, you will have equal opportunities to be in these lab spaces. I guess I should point out, for those of you who are thinking, but I have to be virtually the entire semester. So right, you will not be able to come to campus to do the lab work. In that case, again, our lab faculty are very much focusing on how to give you the highest quality and most informative virtual simulated lab experiences.
Perfect, thank you. Our next question is around study spaces available around campus. Will those be available like those in the nursing building, the business school, Banno, or the library? Will those still be readily used for students to use?
So that's an ongoing question that not only the task force is undertaking, but the deans who quote unquote oversee each of the schools is considering too. As I'm sure you have heard or perhaps attended another town hall on, when it comes to the residence halls, your RAs, your community associates, and other staff who oversee the residence areas, they're going to have to lock up the lounge spaces, and those are going to have to be allocated on a reservation system because, again, we need to control densities in those residential lounge spaces. It's a similar issue, if you will, with regard to the academic lounge spaces too. However, we can't necessarily lock them up. So what is our main way of trying to control for density? We're moving furniture out, right? So you may see, for example, many of you, I'm sure, spend a good amount of time in Egan, and if you're in the parking lot, you see all those beautiful open lounge spaces through the glass. You're gonna see less furniture there because we simply have to mitigate the number of students who can be in a given area at a time. So lounge spaces, study spaces will be available, but there will be less furniture, so it won't be able to bring in as many individuals at a given time.
Thank you, Dr. Ligas. Our next question is about the professional development series hosted by the Career Cente involving sophomore success and the alumni job shadow program. Will such programs be available for the fall semester?
Yes, thanks. That's a great question. Sophomore success is being offered in the fall semester, and signups took place at the end of last semester for each of them. So if you haven't gotten into it and you want to participate, I would suggest contacting your career counselor for your specific school now. So yes, that will happen. And the alumni job shadow, we're working on that. It's probably going to take a different form. So my bet is that you are not going to be able to follow people around in big cohorts because many of our alumni are still working like I am at their kitchen table. So that wouldn't be very exciting for you. However, we are trying to set up equally as interesting opportunities for you to take advantage of. Remember, going to these locations is one piece of it, but making that alumni connection is another. So a lot of our students who've graduated, who've gone through the job shadow program, have actually connected really well with their matchup over the years and have ultimately gotten assistance in finding internships and landing jobs. So don't think of it just as that one piece. Think of it more openly in terms of the networking. But yes, we're working on that and we're going to give you something that will still be exciting.
Small follow-up to that, and Toby, this isn't my official question, Toby, but how would sophomore success run if someone's working remotely from home?
Okay. Well, I don't know how the other schools are going to be doing it. However, I can answer how I'm doing it. And my goal right now is to try and have it in person as much as possible until Thanksgiving. And everybody will be socially distanced. I've found a space where it could accommodate the number of people. If in fact that doesn't work out, we're going to run it virtually. And that will not be a problem because I ran senior launch all last semester virtually. So I've got that under my belt, and now know how to share videos and everything. So if in fact someone is staying home and planning on, doing everything virtually this year, I certainly will not do anything to suggest that they wouldn't be in the program. I will offer a additional session for those people so that they can be getting the exact same information as everyone who's here in person. Does that answer it?
Sounds all good to me.
Okay.
And this is now still my question. Sorry, Toby. For the classrooms and syllabi itself, will there be a time frame that students can expect to know if their class will be, how would I say this, online or in hybrid session?
Okay, so that's a great question, right? Now remember, every class is going to have both options, right? Well, I shouldn't say options, it's going to have both forms of engagement, in person as well as virtual. In terms of the syllabus, every faculty member has been asked to put their syllabus up on Blackboard. As you folks know, depending on your faculty member, right? Some faculty would use Blackboard for course management, other faculty members would use other course management, some would just simply pass their syllabus out the first day of class. Because of this alternative environment in which we're going to be working this fall, every faculty member has been asked to put their syllabus with relevant course information up on Blackboard, because each and every one of you knows how to access Blackboard, utilize it, so that way you will find out the pertinent facts about each of your courses. Similarly to that, and to Vince's question, right? Once the faculty know who's staying remote versus who's going to be on campus, they will be able to get in touch with you, most likely, I would think, through Blackboard or certainly through some distribution list, and let you know, these are the days when I expect you, Vince, to be in class. And the other days, Tobenna, this is when I expect you to be in class, because you're both in the same class and I have to split you up. So all of that will be worked out and conveyed to the students so that hopefully, ideally, each and every one of you will have some knowledge of your schedule for the 12 weeks from September 1st through the weekend before Thanksgiving. Now, what I want to point out here to you, we all know how busy you folks are. 5 or 6 classes, many other co-curricular and extracurricular events that you're going to try and undertake in this strange new socially distanced world. Many of you are looking for jobs and internships, working with, Ms. Borgman's office, working, perhaps a work-study job or a non-work study job. But when it comes to your academic schedules this fall, right, we are asking a bit more of you in terms of keeping track of that, because again, it may be one day during the week you're physically present in the class. Another day during the week you're doing it virtually, right? So it's not sort of that rote behavior that you're all used to. I have, a class with Dr. Ligas on Mondays and Thursdays from 11 to 12:15, and I know I have to go down to Dolan, whatever the building number or office number or classroom number is down there. That won't happen this fall, right? It may be every Monday you're going down to the physical classroom, and every Thursday you have to be logged in, or making sure you do work asynchronously. That's a bit more on you folks, right, in terms of keeping your schedule straight. We know you can do it because we know you're very smart, but we also know that you have a lot of commitments in the fall. So just be aware of that, right? You're going to have to just be a bit more cognizant of when and where you need to be for your classes.
Can I throw something in? To a certain degree, this is almost an introduction to what it's going to be like life after Fairfield, in terms of calendaring and keeping track of, where am I supposed to be and what time is this meeting. I know most of you are big fans of using the computer for your scheduling, but this might be a good time for you to go to the dollar store or someplace and get an old-fashioned calendar where you can keep track of all these different things, and on this day I'm supposed to be here and there. It might help you through this whole process because it is a lot and it is new to you, but it's also going to help you in the long run in terms of after Fairfield being accountable for your time. So think of it as positive.
Well put, Kath.
Thank you, Dr. Ligas and Kat. Our next question is about testing accommodations. Would they be made available to students who are fully remote?
So that's a great question. Yes, absolutely. Obviously, it would depend on your specific accommodations because every single person is different. But yes, your professor will have the ability to make changes to, if you have an online exam. I would say typically a lot of the time the platform that they're using is Blackboard. You may have experienced other platforms as well, but yes, they have that ability to go in and make changes. If you have any other concerns that you want to talk about, you can of course reach out to us, because I know that some students use assistive technology during exams. I can work with you. I've worked with many students on your specific device and what the assistive technology might look like during an exam. But certainly if you want to reach out, you can. I believe I saw another question in there. If I'm happy to answer that, it looks like accessibility related. Is that okay with everybody? If I can actually find it, apologies. Did anybody else see that question? It was another accessibility question. I don't want to lose it. Sorry about that, everybody. Just want to make sure because you're probably going to pop back to me if you have that question. Oh, why is it not popping up? Does anybody else see that? Maybe not. Well, I'll just let everybody answer the questions that they have to. But yeah, so if it's a specific testing accommodation, yes, you can of course still have that accommodation. Actually, I'm recalling what the question was before. I think it was regarding how do students reach out about changes in the accommodation. I think that was the other question that I saw on there. You can reach out to us at ooa@fairfield.edu if you have specific questions you want to discuss. It may be specific to logging into your accessibility profile and just changing a couple of buttons, or if you want to have a meeting, we can discuss, everything specifically. But just reach out to us via email. That's the best way to get in touch with us. Sorry for the delay there. I was just recalling what the question was. Okay, moving on.
Glad we found it.
Yeah, I found it in my head. I didn't find it in the box, but I found it in my head, so.
Sharp memory. So we only have around time for about 2 more questions left, so I'll use it wisely. One of the questions was regarding office hours and how will professors be able to host office hours in person or remotely, and can people make appointments for those?
So great question, Vince. Great question, students. Again, this is where the Blackboard, having the shell and the syllabus of the course available in Blackboard, will become useful. Of course, faculty will continue to have their office hours. The reality is the majority, if not all of them, even if they're going to be teaching in person and working with you on campus, they're more than likely going to request office hours remotely via Zoom session. So they'll either set up a Zoom link to meet with you, or they will have you perhaps phone in if you're on campus, whatever's most convenient for the 2 of you. But as many of you know, certainly the existing students, when you've gone to office hours, most of our faculty offices simply cannot accommodate that 6-foot social distancing. So it's not in the best interest health-wise to have the face-to-face opportunities. Now you may also find that some of these in-class times, right, may be devoted to more one-on-one work with the students, because when we're in the classrooms with you, right? There's much more space because the classrooms are larger. So you may find some of the office hours also spilling into the class time too. So maybe there'll be 10 of you in the classroom for, I don't know, say a half hour or 40 minutes, and then the remaining 15, 20 minutes, the faculty member will say, okay, now let's take this one by one and let's talk, you know, with whoever wants to speak with me about a specific issue regarding the class, or if someone has a question or needs to go over a homework problem. So that may be another way in which you see the office hours being utilized.
So I think I have the honor of asking the last question, but after Thanksgiving, what's going to happen to labs and students that are having clinicals? Would they continue to meet?
Excellent question. So as you know, when you end up leaving for the Thanksgiving holiday, which remember the academic calendar has changed, so that Friday prior to Thanksgiving week is the last on-campus classroom experience, and then you leave for the weekend, and that whole week of Thanksgiving from an academic perspective is off. And when you come back after Thanksgiving, quote unquote come back, everything those last 3 weeks, including your finals, will be completely virtual. Now, there are some exceptions, and this is important, and this was in the self-identify survey. For juniors and seniors in the School of Nursing, if you are in a clinical rotation or some other such experience that's needed in order for ultimately licensure requirements and moving forward with degree completion, after Thanksgiving, you may be required to be back to participate in those in person. And your faculty members will share that information with you. So again, it's not that you have to remain guessing all throughout the fall and then leave for Thanksgiving and wonder, do I come back or don't I? Before you leave, you'll know whether or not you need to be back. But classroom work, academic learning work will all be virtual after Thanksgiving. So you do not need to come back for that.
Mark, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but it's my understanding, though, that the School of Nursing is doing whatever it can to try and get everybody's clinicals done before that. So I don't want people worrying. I think that they're making every effort.
Yes, they are. Absolutely, they are. It's just that you have to remember, and certainly the nurses know this, right? There's a reason why you chose Egan, because of its reputation and the quality and the rigor of the education. And one of the reasons why we do so well in the area is because we have, for lack of a better way to put it, carte blanche or rights of first refusal for placing our young men and women into these healthcare situations. So as Ms. Borgman said, they are trying everything in their power to get the clinicals done earlier on. But if there are some cases where we said we were going to staff and send our students there, you know, we can't back out on that, not only because of your education progress, but also because it's our Fairfield reputation, and we said that we would have the students there, and we certainly don't want to ruin that reputation in the larger community.
Perfect, thank you. And thank you all for answering such wonderful questions. If you left your email in the Q&A comment, we will be sure to reach out to you. But thank you all for attending tonight's webinar, and thank the three panelists again for taking the time to answer all these lovely questions. And as I mentioned before, we will post a recording of tonight's webinar on the FUSA YouTube channel, and check out the latest updates on the Stags Come Home webpage as they're being updated with the utmost fluidity. One of those words that we're using now. But if you have any more questions, be sure to attend the Move-In webinar this Thursday at 6 p.m. hosted by Residence Life, or follow our FUSA 47 Instagram page to find our FUSA comment box, and we'll do our best to answer your questions. But other than that, thank you for attending. Everyone have a good night.
Thank you, Vinny. Thanks, everyone. Stay well.